When I encounter people who maybe don't go to the opera all the time, which is most people, I describe my music as a sort of combination of tradition and new ideas. I feel very connected to the classical tradition, to the operatic tradition, so that music has a huge impact on me. But I'm also making it new. I grew up in the suburbs, driving around, listening to electronic music and pop music and playing in punk bands, and all of that sort of finds its way into the work as well. So it's really eclectic, and there's something in there for everybody. Doesn't matter what part of the musical world you come from. The opening of Breaking the Waves is really directly influenced by the landscape of Scotland. So back in, I think, 2014, my librettist Royce Favrick and I went to the Isle of Skye. We just would go around and talk to people. We went to Scotland not really knowing what we were looking for. We went to a lot of the places where the film had been shot, but that ended up not actually being the point of the visit. The point was to soak in the natural landscape and to talk to people. So about what it's like to live on the Isle of Skye now, what it was like in the 70s, the attitudes around going to church. We stayed with one woman who told us that, if you were not seen going to church every Sunday, then you would hear about it. Then there would be rumors, so you had to kind of make a show of putting on your white dress and walking to church. And so it's just really fascinating. It's stuff that you can't get by doing research from afar. And also just absorbing the Scottish accent was really impactful. So the singers in this production are singing, some of them, the Scottish ones, are singing with a Scottish accent, which is very particular and beautiful. And so we felt like we had to absorb that before writing the work. We drove around the Isle of Skye and just took in the landscape. And it's a landscape that is very verdant and lush, but also very violent. They're like rocks sort of protruding from hillsides and cliffs with waves crashing against them. And I was really struck by the variety in this landscape and wanted to sort of portray that in the very first chords of the opera. The first chord is supposed to be a wave crashing against a rock, just the biggest wave, this like boom, and then it sort of morphs into this church service. But it's a church service. I think in the score I wrote a church service during a hurricane. So it's this churning water along with this sort of hymn that's trying to emerge. I love this production. I think this production, directed by Tom Morris and featuring amazing sets and costumes by Sutra Gilmore, is so powerful. And it surprises me. I've seen this dozens of times, and still there are moments where I'm just riveted and scared. You have this set that revolves and becomes a house, a church, a cliff. And then, yes, these men emerge from these pillars in this very menacing way that always shocks me every single time. Lauren is incredible. She's just scarily talented. I have no idea. She's a singer who's able to create a sense of closeness and intimacy, but then also can sing to the back of the hall and can create these notes that cut through. And to find someone who can do both is really incredible, and who's can not only act but also sing this role. She's really on stage almost without a break for 2 hours. And it's taxing emotionally and physically. And to work with someone who can sort of still act through it and remain committed and focused is incredible. Bess is a fascinating character in that she's incredibly complex. And she, is a very young, very devout, you could even say naive young woman who's in her early 20s, who has sort of been on this small island, in this Calvinist community for her whole life. So there's that side of her. And she also has incredible agency. She has a single-mindedness that is unlike anyone else in the opera. Everyone else in the opera resorts to violence or yelling or coercion to sort of make their point or get what they want, even if their intentions are good. And Bess just has this single-minded path. And she also has these really amazing conversations with God. So Bess is very devout. As I mentioned, she talks to God and then responds in God's voice. And this is something, if you've seen the film Breaking the Waves, like this is a really incredible and jarring. These scenes of Emily Watson speaking to God are really incredible. So they're in the opera and they're a big part of how I conceive of the character. So I think that in writing music for her, I tried to capture that sort of light, youth in her melodies and in the music that's going underneath, and but also to capture that single-minded focus. So sometimes those things are juxtaposed. Sometimes they're like on top of each other in one chord. I think opera is a place for big ideas. It's, I think the biggest canvas you can have in music, and you have all these elements at your disposal. So I want to use that to tell stories about big things and to explore deep ideas through the music and the text and everything else. So, Breaking the Waves is at its core a story about what does it mean to be a good person? What is the nature of loyalty and faith when those tenets contradict each other? What does a woman in an impossible situation do when everyone around her is telling her what to do and they're all telling her different things? So these are sort of unanswerable questions, but I want people to come out of the opera talking about them. And my favorite part of making art is like engendering a deep discussion about what it means to be a person. This is a work that takes you on a journey. This is a work that will leave you with more questions than answers. And I think that is attractive to people. I think that people want to come together to see art in a room and talk about it. This is like a universal thing that's been true since the beginning of humankind and will always be true. And Breaking the Waves gives you the space to do that. I also think that musically, it's something that if you love La Boheme, if you love like older opera, which I do, which a lot of people do, there's something in this for you. And if you love Lars von Trier or independent cinema, there's something in this for you. If you love really compelling stories about the nature of goodness, there's something here for you. And if you are interested in contemporary music and how contemporary composers are filtering their experience through music, there's something here for you. So it appeals to people, I think, on a number of levels. It's not like one thing that makes it work. And I think I've also just been blessed with like really incredible collaborators. So this production is by the director Tom Morris, and he just has gone infinitely deep into the psychology and the story, and has committed every moment to illuminating that. So it's a profound experience. Even for me, someone who wrote the music, like I know what happens. And again, I'm still just so struck by this particular production.